Avatar is a franchise which leaves audiences constantly divided for the past 15 years at this stage. I am in fact one of the people who are a little indifferent about it at this stage, to the point where I only ever get mildly entertained by them. I won't completely discredit them though. First movie is still to this day a technical marvel and acts as an important milestone in modern cinema history. However, for me, in terms of the first two, the stories never do enough for me to be fully invested into caring about these movies, you know? I'm not gonna walk out of the theater, be so upset that I couldn't visit Pandora, then proceed to see if I can go there by passing to the other side, to put it lightly. Now in current year, the year 2025, we finally have the third movie in the franchise. Avatar Fire and Ash is directed by James Cameron. It stars Sam Worthington, Zoe Saldaña, Stephen Lang, and Oona Chaplin. This film picks up right after the second in the wake of the devastating war against the RDA and the loss of their eldest son. Jay Scully and Neytiri face a new threat on Pandora, the Ash people, who are a violent, power-hungry Na'vi tribe led by the ruthless Varang. Jake's family must fight for their survival and the future of Pandora in a conflict that pushes them to their emotional and physical limits. I actually saw this movie on Christmas Eve, which is something I don't think I've ever done. I understand with that in mind, by the time I'm able to get this video out, I'm a little late to the party, but it's better than nothing, and YouTube will ultimately punish me for this anyways. With all that being said, let's begin. I'm going to start by talking about the performances, leading with Sam Worthington. Worthington is known for movies like Hacksaw Ridge and Clash of the Titans. I'm not going to talk about how I feel about the character of Jake Sully from the other movies, so I'll put some of those thoughts solely into his performance alone, as something I dislike about the character rears its head in this movie too. I won't doubt that there are some pretty good moments in isolation where he has a monologue or two, and he brings a great deal of emotion to these scenes, to the point where you can engage enough with him to hang on to every word. But most of the other times in this, he has the same bland, uninteresting protagonist aura that he's been doing for the past two movies. I don't know, for me, Sully just isn't that interesting of a character. On top of that, there's times where the guy isn't a good father to his kids during points where it feels like it doesn't make sense why he would act like this. However, these are more character's flaws, so to his credit, he does a good job at acting like this to a realistic extent, despite there being no room for sympathy with me personally. Zoe Saldaña reprises her role as Neytiri. She's known for having roles in movies like Guardians of the Galaxy, Star Trek, and most recently the Oscar-winning Emilia Perez. Christ.
Penis to vagina. Is it for you? For the love of God! Please!
I liked her role in this movie. She has moments where she has to show moments of rage, which she pulls off well. Along with that, she also has a couple of big emotional scenes where she does good here too. It engaged me to be invested with her character and what's happening to her and the people around her. I thought another aspect that was done well was showing her growth from the second and third movie. There's little moments to her eyes that you can see the deep-seated grief within her naturally still lingers. She achieves this when showing moments of hate to certain characters. It keeps you wondering what she'll probably end up doing to these characters in the later entries of the franchise. Oona Chaplin plays the role of the new villain in this movie, who goes by the name of Varang. She's known for roles in movies like Quantum of Solace and What If. And as for a fun fact, I found out through the following press tour of this movie that she is the granddaughter of Charlie Chaplin, which I personally think is really cool. I thought she was great in this and served as a worthy addition to the franchise. She possesses a screen presence which, funnily enough, seems otherworldly. Whenever there's scenes of her destroying things or killing other Na'vi, she's always doing it with the most joyous expressions and glee, which not only comes off as disturbing, but oddly endearing too. She's constantly threatening whenever she interacts with most of the characters she shares the screen with. Her one goal is to cause chaos and conquer, and she displays this need really well from her presence. Anytime she's in scenes, she steals the screen from me. Stephen Lang reprises his role as Quaritch, the villain of the past two movies. He's known for roles in movies like Don't Breathe and Tombstone. I'm gonna get a little controversial here and say that I genuinely think consistently in all three of these movies, Lang still remains to be the best part of them. Every line reading he gives is perfect, where it always manages to get a smile out of me. His story through the past two movies have been interesting, so it's cool to see another side of him in the small moments where he tries to care for his son, who is being watched over over by Jake Sully and his family. I feel like slowly but surely they're setting Lang's character up for a big arc, but we'll have to see what happens. Jack Champion reprises his role of Spider from the last movie. He's known for having roles in movies like Scream 6 and Retribution. I gotta say, I think Champion was the weakest point of this movie. There were a lot of points where his line readings fell short from what I could hear. It always felt like they were done on the first take, and they just left it at that. He never fully felt like he could really show the weight of the different emotions of his character that he had to deal with. There's occasions where his line readings even feel laughable, but not in a way where you would be laughing with the character for actually having humorous moments. No, it's more so laughing at the character in secondhand embarrassment for what's happening on screen. There's a bit of a gap until the fourth movie comes out, so maybe the guy's acting will improve in the future. I'll be the first to say, the other two Avatar movies' plots aren't all that much to be desired. The first movie is a glorified, derivative ripoff of films like Dances with Wolves or Pocahontas, as many people have iterated in the past. Thankfully, by the time the second film rolled around, there was some more originality here by introducing the water Na'vi. Now this movie does the inverse of that by introducing the fire Na'vi, which are admittedly pretty cool and interesting characters, especially when we hear more about their backstory in some moments of this thing. I thought occasionally some of the family drama stuff did work really well, mainly focusing on the son of the Sully family, who has to come with terms with his brother's death from the second movie. Spoilers, I suppose, if you haven't seen the second movie. I probably should have put that in the start of this video, which for some reason Jake will constantly blame the kid for, showing once again that he is a pretty bad father. From what I remember, he was a bad father in the second movie, but the way he treats the guy in this just takes the cake. The inverse of that is seeing the things Quaritch does in this. He hears that his son could be in danger, and he intentionally delays his initial mission in order to try get him back, and when he does get him back, he actually treats him decently despite hoping to use him as some sort of weapon. But like I said, I think anything this guy does is insanely more interesting than main cast. For example, when he visits the Ash people, it mirrors the type of intention that settlers in America pushed on the Native Americans by giving them weapons to kill off other tribes, which in the end goal was actually just a way for the settlers to try and wipe out more of the Native Americans so they could take the land for themselves, which is essentially what is going on not only in this movie but the franchise as a whole. I don't know why it's taken me about 3 movies to realize that ultimately Avatar is just a metaphor for the foundation of America, and this movie does ramp it up to make it more obvious, but I feel like a lot of general audiences won't be able to get that. Most of the action scenes are done pretty well. The last hour of the movie is just a massive action scene. It was so much that it did almost tether into Marvel territory, but at least it was great to look at, which brings me to my next point. The biggest selling point of all these Avatar movies is the visual effects, of course. Once again, this movie prevails in providing incredible visual effects from start to finish. I do from time to time miss the color grading of the original Avatar movie, which I think made the visual effects even better, but there still is a major attempt to make these movies look good. I have a complete brain dead conspiracy theory that the reason a lot of movies with visual effects don't look good anymore is because of these Avatar movies, which doesn't mean any ill will to this movie in particular, but it is as if most of the talented visual effects artists and their time is given solely to these movies alone, and obviously it pays off pretty well here. The way the Na'vi look in this is great. They do really seem like real things that could exist. The landscape all looks really beautiful like the last movie. The water is great to look at, and the contrast of the fire being as bright as it would be if you were standing right in front of it is great as well. Like I said, in modern movies they don't really have great effects anymore, and I'm sick of seeing fire effects in movies look really bad these days, so it was just a nice change here for me. Moving on to the cinematography in this, it was done by Russell Carpenter, who's done cinematography for Titanic and the previous Avatar movie. It is a little hard to talk about the cinematography in this, as I'm not entirely sure how much of the motion capture equates to what is done in camera for the final product and how much of it is just animated, but I will say something that constantly pissed me off the more and more it was done in this movie is what looked, in my opinion anyways, like these artificial zooms which could have been done in the editing process of this movie. They constantly, to me, looked really horrible and distracting especially. I think it at first wanted to give off the idea that it was meant to be like a nature documentary giving an in-look into the life of the Na'vis, but this is an action sci-fi adventure movie, so like I said, it made it so distracting acting, since they all looked pretty bad. There isn't anything too incredible in terms of camera techniques achieved here, because like I said, at the end of the day, this is an action movie. This isn't something people mainly expect from these movies. The music in this movie was composed by Stephen Franklin. He's done music for the previous 2 Avatar movies and the movie Friday. The music is similar to how it is in the last 2 movies. There is a lot of appreciation for Native American type of music, which consists of a lot of chanting and vocals, which breathe life into the world of Pandora, as it sounds like the type of music that would probably be listened to by a lot of the inhabitants there. Strangely enough, the end credits song is sung by Miley Cyrus of all people, which was an odd choice to say the least. I think it was just strange. It felt out of place. It feels like a cheap attempt to get Oscar recognition for Best Original Song, so that's all I really have to say about it here. Despite what I've been saying, I did in fact like the movie. It is a technical marvel which deserves big screen attention. I will say though, while I appreciate that there is a big emphasis on story, I do think that at the slightest this movie is almost too long. There are small things and certain lines that could be trimmed out. However, as everyone knows, James Cameron has it in his mind that these movies need to be as long as they are in order to tell their full complete stories. But still, if there are some lines which maybe don't sound the best, or if a line reading isn't too perfect, it should probably be cut out, at least in my opinion anyway. Because other than that, there isn't a scene here that feels out of place. It does all flow the way it should for a majority of it, but at the same time the plot has that bare bonesness to it, but at least adds aspects which makes the rest of the franchise interesting later in hindsight for what's to come, as there are 2 more movies on the way. I'm not sure how I feel about this. It should probably be 2 separate trilogies, but from what I'm read, if it's true or not, 2 and 3 were originally meant to be 1 movie, which makes a lot of sense. I've seen people complain that this is too similar to the second movie, but with the idea that it was meant to be 1 movie, I think it makes a lot of sense. I'm giving Avatar Fire and Ash 3 stars. The movie does have some pretty good performances from most of the cast involved, and obviously I don't gotta state it again, but this is of course an incredible feat of visual effects which looks great from start to finish. It's so vibrant and colourful without being an eyesore. There's some interesting stuff going on, while other aspects still bring the franchise down a bit for me. There must be something in my brain that will never fully make me appreciate these movies, but I know there are people that are going to adore them, and I'm glad people get to have that experience with these things. If my rating seems low, don't let that discourage you from checking it out, as it definitely is worth seeing, and I can safely say it would be worth seeing on the biggest screen possible, as this is still running in theaters currently. While I didn't get to experience in this specific format, I would even go as far as to say it's worth checking out on IMAX to get the best sound and the best picture, as this is the way these movies deserve to be watched.